Celeste, welcome to the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for letting me be here. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. Very well. Thank you so much for your time. Today, we're going to have a profile piece on you and talk about why you chose SEO out of all the digital marketing channels, particularly social media, which is very popular for most people who get into digital marketing. And I want this to be a very casual conversation around the decision to be an SEO professional. As I like to do with all my SEO guests, I like to ask them, if you like, what led you to SEO in the first place? Because I believe every SEO professional has some sort of story. You know, most SEOs, they don't learn SEO at college or uni. They tend to follow it from some sort of route. So what was your route into SEO?
Yes, so I was studying in college. I was studying managerial economics. I was planning to go down a finance route. Took an internship where we got to learn all different aspects of running a business, including marketing and digital marketing. Someone presented on SEO, and I was like, well, forget everything that I was just doing. This is what I want to head into. And I just didn't look back since that.
What do you think it is about SEO that made you gravitate to it?
So I really loved the person who presented. I think they just honestly were an amazing speaker, but um, I liked that the way that the woman who presented on it was just like, this is a puzzle. These are the pieces of it, and figure it out each time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get to solve a puzzle every single day at work. Like I get to do something new. I can do this or I can do that, or I can, I can do content, but I can also learn how to use Python. I really liked the flexibility that it offered. And it wasn't just such a strict, like, okay, you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then you do that. I loved just the flexibility and the freedom.
And I saw on your LinkedIn that you created a blog and started to explore several channels. So SEO, content marketing, and social media was one that caught my eye. Most people who get into digital marketing, uh, they tend to go with social media. And I have a thing about social media. It's not an insult to them. I just find SEO to be more fascinating. And I'm always curious as to why people gravitate towards social media rather than SEO, even though, from a digital marketing channel, social media is the newest, if you like, newest kid on the block.
Mhm.
SEO has more of a grounding within digital marketing, yet people gravitate towards social media. In your case, what do you think it was about SEO that made you pick SEO rather than social media?
So I think to kind of think of that question in the reverse, it was more so like what I didn't like about social media that kind of drew
Hmm.
me more towards SEO.
Wow. Okay.
So I grew up and what was it? Instagram came out when I was in middle school. So I've just had social media basically from the start, and it got pretty exhausting. When I was younger, I did try to gain a following on Instagram. I did have like a mini YouTube channel, just like those lookbooks, very, you know, very childish, just like, oh, what I do in a day or outfit of the day, things like that. And I had a small following. At the time, it was before like there were influencers or anything like that. It was just, I had about between like 3 to 4,000 followers, and then some brands would send me stuff, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. But it got pretty exhausting doing that. I was tired of I didn't really understand the algorithm or anything like that because, again, it wasn't like influencers and how it is now. But being on that side of it and how tiring it was, I basically deleted everything. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I knew how hard it was, I guess, to gain a following, just as myself, that I definitely did not want to do that for any brands. I still tried it out, and I did do an internship where I was working on a couple Instagram accounts, and it just basically confirmed that I don't really want to be on social media any more than I have to be to keep in contact with people.
Right.
Yeah.
With SEO, would you say you have a favorite area or pillar?
I love content. Content is just my favorite. It is initially how I got started. So when I had started that blog, mainly I was just focusing on getting the content part of it down. I had done an internship where I was writing blog posts for an SEO agency, and where I'm currently at in RicketyRoo, Melissa Pop, she's the director of content. She's one of my mentors. I love learning from her. Everything is exciting. It's just something that, you can write one thing for one client. One day you can create a topic cluster for a different client. Another day it's new. It's, you don't have to get stuck with just like, okay, I'm only going to write this type of content every day. Kind of like my blog, which was just about student life. That can get kind of boring, but working at an agency and having so many different types of clients, home services, addiction treatment facilities, you get to learn more about the client and what they do, which makes it the most exciting for me.
With content writing, what is the personal, if you like, reward or satisfaction you get from it? I ask that because when I think of content writing, I wouldn't call myself a content writing person, even though I kind of started that way. But when I think of content writing, I think of copy and paste from an SEO point of view, trying to do the bare minimum. Whereas some SEOs are very much content focused, right? And there is some sort of enjoyment they get in either producing and or releasing content. What is that personal reward for you?
I would just say that with it, I actually like the writing part of it. I don't think that that's like the one thing that I could just continue to do forever and ever, because it does require a lot of brain power to get that done. But it's rewarding to get to share, I guess, what the client does and get to leverage sort of their experience and their expertise and showcase what they have done, especially when you have those clients that are pretty active and involved and they are ready to answer your questions. They're ready to be like, oh, actually, we believe this about that. Like, you should include this. It's nice to be able to, I guess, amplify what they're saying and make sure that that gets shared, show that what they're talking about is really cool.
Most SEOs who are agency side, they have a huge challenge when it comes to content either writing or creation. And the challenge is usually trying to be an expertise within their client field. So as an example, writing for, I don't know, a brand within the television space is pretty simple, right? We all know what televisions are. We can pretty much write any and everything about televisions. Writing content, creating content for a business within the maritime industry presents a unique set of challenges. You first have to understand that industry, right? And the more obscure the industry, the more research one has to carry out in order to create that content. What is your approach to navigating those challenges?
Definitely. It can be pretty tough with certain topics that you're just not interested in, or you just don't have any type of background in at all. It really helps when we initially onboard clients. We, have a few calls with them. We get to know them. Our content director, we have like big intake forms that kind of ask tons of different questions about what they specifically do. But as an account manager, I like to have these conversations with them and basically ask as many questions as possible to try to understand. We had a client that was in the automotive industry. I don't know anything about cars at all. I'm not necessarily interested in learning about cars or, like paint wraps for cars, anything like that. But just having a conversation and getting to know the client, getting to know why they're in this work, what this work is, what they're passionate about within it, kind of hypes me up to be like, okay, they really love doing this. Like, that makes me excited, seeing them excited about it, and it makes me ready to learn more about whatever it is that they're offering. But it definitely can be a challenge when you don't necessarily find the service or product to be particularly interesting.
I spoke with an SEO from the UK. I think her name's Emily Warsall. We had a conversation around branding, and the conversation went into SEOs have a very unique position when it comes to creating content, because we advocate for users, whereas brands, they tend to, when they create content, they tend to create with a brand lens point of view. So they advocate for themselves and don't necessarily get what the audience wants. What do you think SEOs bring to the table in terms of SEO agency side and a brand writing content that's for the brand's industry, or specifically for the brand?
So I think it's a very tricky balance when it comes to things like that. So a lot of people just say, "Oh yeah, just write SEO content," and that's not that's not a thing. You should be that's not a thing. You should be writing good content for the people who are looking for whatever it is. So like going back to the automotive industry, let's just say they do like clear bra and paint wrapping. I don't know what that is, but I want that for my car. You're going to try and answer their questions and help them every step of the way to decide if they really want that. What type do they want? Will it work for their car? Guide them through every step of the journey. And some clients don't necessarily understand that, or writing a piece on doing it yourself. That's always something where they're like, why would I write that? I'm trying to sell. Why would I say to do it yourself? Right. And it's because a lot of people are not going to actually do it themselves. They want to see the work that's involved and then realize like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to pay someone. This is where your communication skills are just the most important thing, because it is important to have that brand content. People do want to get to know, working in local SEO, people do want to know who that business is. They want to understand what their story is, and it's important to share that. So communication with the client and getting across why you're publishing each piece of content on there that you are, the goals of each piece, and providing that balance, because the branded content still is important. People still want to know who the business is. And as SEOs, we shouldn't ignore that, because it's helpful at the end of the day.
I want to get into what you thought about SEO before and after becoming an SEO professional. But before that, how did you land your role at RicketyRoo?
Yep, it's honestly, anytime I tell someone this, they're always like, what? What do you mean? I got the job through Twitter.
Whoa.
Yes, I got the job through Twitter.
Huh.
I was, when I was working on my own blog and I was kind of doing some internships and freelancing, I had realized that a lot of the SEO community was on Twitter. So I was like, okay, that's where my people are. I need to make an account. I need to get out there, interact with people, follow some people. I do not remember who it was. I really wish I did, but someone that I'd followed had retweeted a post about an SEO strategist position at RicketyRoo. Kim Dowdy had tweeted it. And I looked at it. I knew I was definitely not qualified enough for the position because they wanted someone with like quite a few years experience. But I looked at their site, I read everything, I went through Kim's tweets, I was like, okay, this is a cool person, this person knows what they're talking about, I like what I see with the job posting, I like what I saw on the site, I was like, okay, I kind of did a little bit of research on them, I messaged Kim, and I had basically just started asking her questions about the position and then said, would you be hiring in the future for applicants who are like, don't have 4+ years experience? I'm interested. She had said, I don't know. Let me just get your resume and send that to Blake. And I'll get back to you. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I wasn't expecting much. Blake had then emailed me and was like, oh, let's schedule just a talk. We're not hiring for a junior or anything, but let's just have a chat. And we talked. He was like, okay, I'll set a reminder for once you graduate college. We could have a discussion then. I was like a couple months out from graduation. I was like, okay, that sounds great. A week later, I received an email and he was like, can you start now, actually? Let's just get started. Like, we can start part-time. We'll figure it out. And that was it. I've been with RicketyRoo ever since. So I was finishing up my degree while working part-time. And then as soon as I graduated, jumped on full-time and haven't looked back.
Wow. So you never know. Always have to show initiative. I think you're the first person.
Yes, Twitter could be it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think you're the first person that I know full-time SEO who's landed the role via Twitter. I know contractors have, but not a full-time SEO person. Good on you. In terms of what you thought about SEO, what was it before you became a professional, and what was the reality after you became a professional?
Okay, so when I had gotten started, it definitely, first, that presentation, I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to learn how to code everything. I'm going to write everything. I was never really interested in any of the link stuff. So I was like, okay, hopefully I don't have to deal with that. Then when I actually was getting started, so at RicketyRoo, I was mainly doing content. I was doing a little bit of just like looking into link opportunities for clients and stuff. But since the experience I had before was just on the content side, that is where I started. Based on what I was doing on my own and I had kind of freelanced, I was like, okay, this is in line with what I already know. But in the mentorship that I had from Melissa, from Blake, from other people on the team, I realized there was so much more than I had even thought before. Like that there were, I was getting articles sent to me like, oh, look at this training, look at this lesson, use some time for education. There are people that deep dive into patents and try to use that to explain why they do things the way that they do. There's people who talk about just SEO software and that, okay, they only crawl like once a month, so that's not completely accurate. So you need to do your rank tracking this way. It was very overwhelming. And what I thought was going to be like, okay, this is fun. This is a nice puzzle. This is a good challenge. It just became infinitely harder. And I was like, I have no idea which way to run and where to go. But my team was really awesome. They've helped me figure out where I want to end up, or at least just, within the next few years where I want to keep going and growing. They're very supportive of that, but it was entirely overwhelming. And it was just, there was so much more than I'd ever even thought from when I initially started.
Is there one path to SEO, to learning and establishing oneself in it?
Definitely not. I came in from the content side of it, which I feel like a lot of people do, but in talking to other SEOs and getting to know their stories, I know there are people who came in as just developers, so they have nothing to do with the content side of it. There are people who just came in as link builders. Maybe they were doing, some shady link building at some places and then they grew into something else. Definitely not one path, and there's definitely not, you don't have to just stick with what you started out in.
So if that is the case, how would one then, because it seems as though an individual is really led by who they are, right? So how would one figure out their path?
So as someone who's still carving out my own path, like that's a pretty difficult question to answer, but it's to find your own path is to connect with a community that supports you. I was part of the Women in Tech SEO mentorship cohort a little while ago, and I was matched with an amazing woman. Her name's Lindsay Balin. She helped me sort of determine where I wanted to go with my career. So I think that in having community and finding a mentor, it is paramount in figuring out where you want to end up. Obviously, they can't tell you this is what you need to do and this is where you need to go and this is how you get there, but they can help you decide and figure out what you're most interested in. They can expose you to things that maybe you wouldn't have looked into yourself, but then you end up really liking, or it confirms that, okay, no, I don't actually like this. So the Women in Tech SEO mentorship, entirely helpful. If you're able to find a mentor from other communities that you would feel comfortable speaking in, that would be, I think, my best advice to figure out where you want to go.
Let's zero in on that. How did you determine your path specifically? So as an example, we have, let's say, a tech SEO person. They know they're technically minded, and whenever they crawl a site, they like to look into data. They very much like to look at a site, if you like, from a technical lens. They like spreadsheets. They know, okay, whenever they have a chance to crawl a site, in the infinite, unlimited amount of ways to crawl a site, that is their jam. That's what they're very happy with. If there is a pitch and they, as part of the pitch, they have to crawl a site, they're always the first to offer their help, right? So they know technical is their path. How did you determine your path? You don't necessarily have to have carved it all out and seen the end result, but knowing this is the path that I want to commit myself to. What led you to that determination?
It's a feeling. It's feeling that this is right, that this is okay, that, okay, what I'm doing, okay, sure, maybe it's challenging one day. Of course, no one's going to have perfect days every single day. But the general feeling and consensus that this is right, I know what I'm doing is what I want to do, I enjoy doing it. That is how I know what's going, like that this is going well and this is where I need to be. Even if, you were that technical person and you're good at it, but if you're not happy doing it, or if you're not content at least, or there's some sort of doubt or what ifs in your mind, then at that point, that's where I would want to try something different. Right. Having that confidence and that contentness in what you're doing.
How does it feel if you were to, or how would you imagine it would feel if you were to do link building?
So I would not be the happiest person. I think that is, not something I'm necessarily interested in. It would be kind of boring for me. I would just be like, okay, let's get through this day. Um, I know that's not the path for me. It's the path for someone, it's just not mine.
Right. I know SEOs that are, I speak with SEOs well all the time, hence the podcast, right? And you have SEOs that are technically focused. Some are even are data focused. Some are content focused. Others are specialists in link building. And I find that
Mhm.
SEOs who almost like they can be a PR person, right? They are very link building is their thing. They just love interacting with publishers, other websites, finding publishers, and that relationship building. They just gel to it. And you can tell, yes, they were made to be either an SEO off page person or a PR person, right? And you have all of
Yeah.
these different SEOs, and they are all SEOs. A technical person is as much as an SEO as a link builder or a content person. What do you think it is about this industry that draws so many different mindsets? Because I find it very fascinating. One industry has so many different ways of getting into it without there being any official regulation in place. Yet there's almost this agreement within the industry that certain things needs to be in place for websites. What is it about the industry that attracts so many different mindsets?
I think it's just the motivation that everyone has. It's inspiring to be around other people that are motivated. It makes you more motivated in whatever discipline you decide to choose. I think that it attracts so many different minds because it's something that can be new depending on the client. You can be in the education space one day and then, transition and you're working with home services clients. You, while the essentials and the basics of everything, yes, of course, it's going to be the same across all clients, but you get to try something new. You get to have a different puzzle that you're trying out. And that just attracts so many different people because it's so many different things that you're trying to put together. There's different, there's the content side of it, and that's can be mind numbing for some people, but it can also be the most exciting thing. And you get to work with that technical person, and, that may not be your thing, but that's their thing, and they get to communicate that to people. I think it's just the passion, the flexibility, that really brings in people from all walks of life and all different types of mindsets.
For an aspiring SEO executive, how would you recommend they land a role as an SEO, their first SEO role, I should say?
So while I did have a unique experience in landing my role, I would say that putting yourself out there is really important. I know that with like Twitter, a lot of people have left because of the changes that have been going on there. The community is still pretty active. It's just important in being visible. So while it's, social media, I know that's like, ugh, but being on there or being on LinkedIn, contributing where you can. It was terrifying for me to start responding to people or offering my thoughts on topics on Twitter. But once I started, that's when people started to take notice, and that's when I was able to get opportunities. So right before I came on with RicketyRoo, SEMrush reached out to me to collaborate on something with them. And I didn't have a job at that point. I was not at an agency. I'd freelanced a little bit and just had my blog, but they liked what I had to say and they reached out to me. And it was great to then bring that up in an interview. I understand that not everyone necessarily wants to be out there. Not everyone wants to be speaking. They just want to do the work. But being visible, at least contributing on, tweets where you may have a certain perspective. On LinkedIn, if you can try to post on there. I don't like LinkedIn, but we got to do what we have to do. I think that would be very important. And community. So just like the Women in Tech SEO community, if that applies to you, go ahead and join it. Latinas in SEO, if that applies, go ahead and join it. I think there's neurodivergence in SEO as well. Finding a community and a space where you feel comfortable to ask questions and build connections, and eventually you'll be able to find that role that works for you.
You mentioned just moments there that you found it terrifying to contribute in the beginning. Why?
So even just today, like this is my first podcast I've ever been on, it is scary to share your thoughts, I think. Even if like, okay, I know the sky is blue, but saying the sky is blue is really scary, because what if just one day it's not blue and I messed up and that's it? And, it just sets in a whole bunch of panic. It is, especially just with certain topics where people are asking like, oh, what do you think about this topic thing? And so, maybe someone reached this conclusion going one way and I reached a different conclusion going another way. It can be intimidating, I guess, to have that type of discourse on things and seeing where it goes, especially on like a platform like Twitter. You can't really read someone's tone. So you don't necessarily know if it's just like, oh, actually, I disagree with you because of this. Or it could be sort of in an attacking tone. You can really misread things on there. I had seen some arguments on there before that it definitely made me nervous to jump in and share my thoughts or share my perspective. But having done that now, I can say that no one's there. I mean, there really aren't any, like, no one's there to attack you. No one's there to just completely debunk anything that you're saying. Everyone's happy to jump in and have a conversation. It was just very intimidating at first seeing some arguments on Twitter and then like, oh man, I really don't want to get involved.
Interesting. I'm not on, technically I am on Twitter. It's not really my platform. It doesn't really gel with me. I'm much more of a LinkedIn person. But I'm aware that there is a lot of, discourse within the SEO community on Twitter. I have never encountered that, but I don't really spend my time on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. But the way I see it, everyone has their the right to voice their opinion. And if someone is speaking their opinion, I'm trying to imagine or consider what would cause the discourse in the first place, why someone else would have the opinion to almost like shut someone's opinion down when it's just their opinion.
Yeah, it was, so when I had first started, I'd seen some people share and, they weren't wrong in what they were sharing, but it was like, wow, this is very basic information. Why did you share it? Which I don't agree with. If someone wants to share something, they have every right to do that. And the basics are important. But in seeing someone else get shot down, it made me very nervous to then share. But now, I feel like as someone who is growing into their career, growing into what they're doing and is gaining that confidence, it's like, I can't believe how nervous I was just to tweet way back then. You have to sort of just challenge yourself in doing that. In all my time in doing this, I have not received like any sort of message that was like, wow, that's terrible. Why did you share this? None of that has happened. It was just the fear of that was just preventing me from sharing. Nothing bad has happened. No one has come in and just said, stop sharing information. So I just think with the newer SEOs, those who are getting started, like, I understand those fears, I understand those concerns, but you're going to be okay. Like, please share what you have to say.
Hear, hear. AI. I have to get your thoughts on AI. I want to get your thoughts on AI in search. You mentioned earlier as clients, we work, SEOs work very closely with clients, with brands, even if it's a brand that the SEO doesn't necessarily have experience within the brand's industry. I've come across clients and I'm seeing that this is a rising trend or ask from brands where they are almost seeking an agency to teach them how to use AI in order to create content themselves with AI. Have you come across this?
Yes. Yes, you definitely have those clients that are just like, how can we use the AI for everything? So eventually, we can replace you and we can replace. Yes, definitely. You have like that side of it. And then you do have others that are like, don't use AI at all. We don't want that. Like, we don't want anything to do with that. Please keep that away from me. So you have one extreme and the other extreme with people right now. And it is always on either side of it, very big conversation and like what that is, what are the repercussions of it, how, you still need, even if, you decide to go that route, you still need the human touch at the end of the day. You still need someone to edit everything that you're writing. You still need, someone to go in and fact check, make sure that things are actually accurate. And, being careful with what you're sharing with the AI because you don't know. I think I just seen on Twitter that someone said that the documents that you're uploading to ChatGPT can be shared. So yeah, I didn't really see too much on it, but it's like being careful what you're feeding into it because if it's like proprietary information, you don't want to just give that away. Yes. Honestly, this is where SEOs really need to make sure you're communicating with the client exactly what the full scope of anything is that you're doing with AI. Have that good conversation with them. Make sure that they understand it because, more than likely they're not going to be an expert on it or they're not going to really understand it. So this is a time where lots of conversations, lots of hand-holding needs to be done.
Do you think SEOs should be worried about AI or the use of AI?
I don't think you should be worried. If you're doing good work, but at the same time, you shouldn't ignore it. You should experiment with it. You should test it for yourself. You should use it. But if you're continuously working on your skills, you can use that to your advantage and you can use it to, leverage, make your work that much better. You have to work with it, not against it. But it won't replace you.
When you think of, or you see, I know SGE is probably still in beta mode in the US, right, where you are.
Yeah.
So when you think of the wide release of it, do you think overall clients, brands are going to be hurt by it, or do you think this is something that's going to aid traffic?
Honestly, I have really not dived into SGE too much. It's not something that I have necessarily been focusing on using or testing out. I do think just from like a user perspective, I know that there are lots of people who like just like with featured snippets and things like that. You like looking it up and it's like, that's it. There's my answer. I don't have to click into anything.
Yeah.
So as a user, I know like that could be helpful. It could be definitely more beneficial, but and where that's going with the client side of things and how like, oh, now no one's going to check out my site because the answer is like right there. I have not gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's still very new. It'll be interesting to see how all of this shapes out. I think users, especially when you think of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they expect answers within the search itself, right? And I
Yeah.
am seeing a trend that I am noticing is the research from start to end is becoming is shrinking. So speed is a massive factor. And as SEOs, when we think of speed, we think of, okay, fast sites, updates, improve the load speed, improve everything to do with the technicals of the site. But there's a different side of speed, and that's a user arriving at the answer quickly. And I think Google,
Mhm.
what we're seeing with stuff like SGE is Google zeroing in on that aspect for users. It'll be interesting to see how all of this shapes out. I'm keeping a very close eye on it. It hasn't yet
Mhm.
rolled out here in the UK, so we haven't had a chance to test it as much. But yes, as soon as it does, I want to see how all of this is shaping out. It'll be very, very interesting in the months and years to come. When you think of SEO as an industry, where do you think we're headed? Let's say just next year.
Whew, loaded question.
I asked this because
I
let me give you a bit more context to this. The
Okay.
reason I'm asking this is because when I'm thinking of SGE and I'm thinking of Google aiming to satisfy users as with information as quickly as possible, and I'm thinking of sites or platforms like TikTok, right? And they are also now getting into search. And I'm looking at the dynamic between all of these big brands, the metaverse, the TikTok verse, Google verse. All of this is headed into users being, and I don't like this term, but it's the only term that comes to mind right now. Users being owned, right, by all of these
Mhm.
platforms. And this is going to shape SEO as an industry. So when you look at it from a broad point of view, all of these platforms, these brands are going after the user. And if TikTok is a rivalry to Google, which I believe they are also influencing Google. So you have all of these
Mhm.
brands aiming to acquire users, aiming to serve users, and their activities are impacting, influencing each other. So users, I believe, now expect information on the SERPs because they're used to finding information on social media quickly, right? So from an even broader point of view, you have search and you have social, and they're becoming, the lines between them are becoming more blurred. So all of
Mhm.
this is leading me to think what is going to happen to SEO in the coming year, because I believe the speed of change is going to be very rapid. And I mentioned
Mhm.
SGE because I think that's the line in the sand. That is the marking point where we see the new Google and everything changes. From your point of view, are you expecting massive changes to search, let's say in the next 12 months?
I, you know, I'm expecting there to be changes. I'm not expecting the sky to fall. I do hear what you're saying and do agree that, the lines are blurring and, TikTok is a competitor to Google with a lot of things. And I say that, as someone who is Gen Z and, and someone who works in SEO, there are things that it's just like, no, I'm not going to Google it. I need to go to
Ah,
TikTok and find this information instead. So, just being that type of user, yeah, I do want the information quickly. I do want to open the search engine and just be like, oh, okay, cool, the TikTok's right here. I can go to it and see that. Or the answer's right here in a featured snippet. Perfect. It's essentially what it's coming down to is I think that as SEOs, we're going to need to get more comfortable with working with other disciplines of marketing. So working with maybe those TikTok marketers, seeing what's going on there on the
mhm.
content side of things. Um, And, it's not going to just be, let me write this. It's going to be like, we need to make video content on this. We need maybe a YouTube video, and we should work, with the team that does that, figure out where we're going with that. Or, oh, YouTube video, 20 minutes, that's way too long. No one's going to pay attention to that. We need a 30-second TikTok. And it's going to be challenging, especially someone who doesn't necessarily want to work in social media or deal with that, but it's not something we can ignore because we're seeing it in the search results. We know that's what people want. And at the end of the day, we're here to give them what they're looking for. So if that involves us now having to work with the other marketing teams on how to get that done, then that's what it's going to be.
Mm. There was a time in SEO where the default format for content was text. This was prior to the multimedia content. Nowadays, you have a variety of mediums, videos, images, etc. As a Gen Z, when you Google something, do you expect the content? What is your preferred content format? Is it still text, or do you prefer videos or images, or does it depend on what you're seeking?
So I do have to say I am a bit of an outlier here, and just talking to like my friends and stuff, they'd much rather watch a video. For me, I want information the quickest way possible, and I can read way faster than someone can explain on a video.
Right.
So I still prefer to read, but I'm definitely just skimming, or I'm like, okay, the answer's not like right here next. But for certain queries, I don't know, more like a DIY or how to do it, I need to see a video just to know how that's getting done versus reading some instructions.
Interesting. How do you think we should be communicating content format to clients? Should we still, SEOs, should we be encouraging them to use video, or does it depend on the content that we're creating?
It definitely depends. And being in the local space, it is much harder to get clients to want to do any type of video.
Right. Yeah.
But there are certain times where it's like, no, I'm showing you right now. This is where we need to be. Like, if you want people to actually look at what you're talking about, whether it's reading it or watch, like, it's for this piece that we're creating, we should have video at least accompany it. It is a battle to get that done with like local clients for the most part, but there are still times where it's completely okay to keep just the text-based content.
What do you wish every client knew about SEO?
So there's different types of clients. They're the ones that are in there learning for themselves, and they come with like really great questions, and it's awesome. And then you have other ones that are trying to understand it, but I feel like they kind of hurt themselves more than helping themselves in the way that they're doing their research. So I wish that they could understand that you can't just read an article on one thing and be like, okay, that's it. We need to do this. And that's how we're going to rank #1 tomorrow. Just more of a general understanding and patience in this, and getting that, okay, just because one article said that if you try this, you can do this, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you. I'm all for them trying to read on their own and trying to educate themselves with it, but and understanding the nuances, I think that would be really helpful.
I'm curious to hear your response to this question. How long does it take SEO to generate results?
Wow. Well, what are results? What are the results that you're looking for?
Right.
And, yeah, what are results? Because, that's usually the question, like, okay, how long is it going to take? And it's like, well, how long is it going to take for what? for the page to be indexed, for someone to visit the page, for someone to make a phone call, for someone to complete a form. It's all entirely different timelines, and it just depends on, I know everyone just says it depends, but where the client's site, like what the state of it currently is. If you're already in great shape, it's not going to be that much effort and that much work to get you to whatever that next goal is. But it entirely just depends on what the resulting goals that you're looking for are, the state of the site.
A lot of agencies are very much focused on the education of SEO to clients, right? And even with, usually there's a educational aspect when you take on a client. Do you think clients really need, or SEOs rather, really need to spend more time educating their clients appropriately, mind you, to improve their awareness of SEO? Not necessarily to do SEO themselves, but to, if you like, know the questions to ask.
Yes, I do think it is kind of our responsibility to do that, especially being in the local space. You do have clients that come to you that were burned pretty badly from previous agencies, and we're just like, we bought you 300 links. Here you go. Work is done for the month. And they're just like, okay, why aren't you doing that? Or you have them that, they came in and their GBPs were suspended because there was just spammy names, fake reviews. It is definitely your job to educate enough that they understand what's going on, they understand the basics, so that way they can ask the right questions and they understand that, you're doing good work. Because having some clients come in who they had duplicate content across the entire site. It was like 300 location pages where just the location is changed out. But then that's also the same duplicate content across 5 other sites that agency had built out for different people. It's really sad. It's very unfortunate. If they're not communicating to the client on what's going on or why they're doing certain things, that can be a little sketchy.
Lastly, Celeste, if I were to ask you, what is the one thing you're happy you realize about SEO now as an SEO professional to when you were seeking a role in SEO, what would that one thing be?
Okay, repeat it one more time. I have so many things going on. So many things.
What is the one thing you now know about SEO as an SEO professional, which you're happy you know about? So it could be a realization. Maybe you had a different view of SEO and you now realize how it's not as simple as it may seem.
Okay. I'd say just from, I guess, the people part of it, the people are amazing. Everyone is really great. I've been to 2 conferences now. I just came back from Brighton SEO, and the community is awesome. I would say if you just go up and talk to anyone, they're happy to talk to you about whatever it is. People are flattered if you talk to them about whatever they had published or whatever they talked about. Generally, everyone is very nice and willing to talk about whatever it is that you wanted to talk about in SEO. So I'd say I'm just very happy that I jumped in and I didn't have to be so scared to talk to other SEOs in the beginning. So it was a really good realization that, not everyone's super pretentious and so smart that they're not even going to talk to me because I don't know about this one thing.
Awesome. If you were to think of from your personal goals, you don't have to share them, but just thinking ahead, where now from here for you?
So I had mentioned, I'm more of like a content SEO, but I've been getting more into I guess, data science, more into that. And I have been working on using tools like Clarity, learning more about CRO. So where I'm headed is, all right, the traffic is here, but now we need to, like, the traffic's here, conversions are here, but we need to get way more of those. Like, where are we going from here? How are we going to improve? Like, rankings, traffic is there. Okay, so what? Like, the client wants money at the end of the day. They want clients for themselves, and it's going to be all more important than just converting that traffic. So that's where I'm at. Learning, testing, lots of testing coming up, and very happy to work with some individuals like Amanda on things like that.
Awesome. Where can people find you online, Celeste?
So Twitter, Celeste X Lily, CELESTEXLILI, and then on LinkedIn. Those are the two platforms that I'm on.
Okay, I'll have those links in the description so people can get in touch with you. Celeste, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you on. Have a brilliant day, and I'm sure we'll catch up again another time.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Cheers. Bye now.